Growing up in a cult. Although he was horrible, the only nice thing I thought he did say was that I was special. He told me I had a powerful prophecy over my life and that I was going to be a prophet for God and save thousands of lives. That apparently missionaries from around the world told him that was my destiny before I was even born. He told everyone in the family that we would be given powers from God. Like real wacky stuff like being able to turn invisible, walk through walls, summon food from thin air and raise each other from the dead if needed. Funny enough, my parents already tried that with my brother. They found out he passed in his crib overnight when he was just a year old. They tried to bring him back to life through prayer, but it didn't end up working. My dad later assured me and all my siblings it was his fault because he didn't believe hard enough and gave in to calling an ambulance. He asked that we don't do what he did if he himself should die. That we should keep our hands in his corpse and keep praying until he came back. He was sure at some points that he was going to die, so he brought it up often. I was never mature enough for my dad. He would often tell me to grow up and take being a warrior of God more seriously. He would say stuff like, "You're 8 now, you need to grow up," and so on. Once I saw him standing at my classroom window when I was in the 4th grade watching me as I was in class. It was terrifying because he always had this face he would pull when he wasn't happy with me. I wasn't very good at school and I had a wild imagination. I had imaginary friends and would fantasize superheroes. I wasn't very good at school and I had a wild imagination. I had imaginary friends and would fantasize superheroes I made up. But I wasn't allowed to imagine, and I mean literally have any imagination. It was one of the things that made him really angry. If I looked out the car door and he thought I was imagining something, he'd pull over and drag me out, hitting me. He claimed he could read my mind, so even if I was never imagining anything, he would ask me what I was imagining. I would have to make something up because if I denied it, even if it wasn't true, it would make him even angrier. Back to cult things, we would have to gather to worship and pray for hours together. I remember he used to get mad if my hands weren't up during worship, even though we'd do it for hours and I'd get sore. He would bring me and my younger brother to these small meetings where people sat in a circle and would have to pray nonstop for an hour. Usually my throat would get sore by the end. Most of the things I learnt in the cult made me think I was evil and going to hell. Even things I didn't mean to happen. A girl kissed me on the cheek once when I was a kid and I ran home crying because I thought my life was over. It was all really scary for a kid, I think, and it closed us off to a lot, not just movies, music, medicine, but also people and our own thoughts. All of this is just a fraction of what kind of went down, but basically fast forward to now, I'm 23. My dad isn't in my life anymore. The cult pretty much dissolved when I was in my teens because the leader died, and I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in 2020. I'm struggling to figure myself out. I've gone a couple years now as an atheist. I went to normal churches for a while beforehand by myself as an adult, but I really struggled with them. I often would feel intense anger or confusion and would have panic attacks or mental breakdowns during services. Sometimes I would even hallucinate. I couldn't understand why God never helped me growing up or even while I was going to these churches, so I think naturally it's why I fell off and became atheist after learning everything I was taught was wrong. Even in mainstream church standards, I couldn't understand any of it anymore.